Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS special series, 59 Days of Healing, where we explore one maxim from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 points for healing dualistic mind, each day to integrate the practice into our lives. Today is day 27, and we're in the midst of point 6, healing promises. Maxim 27 reads, begin healing your most robust emotional reflex. So what is this emotional reflex? This is an everyday way to refer to a Sanskrit term called kleshas, which is a really immense topic. Basically, kleshas are any mental, emotional, whatever it may be, any inner state that disturbs mind's natural tranquility. Why is that important? It's that turbulence which dualistic mind is so good at kicking up, that keeps us from sharpening the laser-like precision of prajna, another Sanskrit word that describes mind's innate capacity to know with clarity and intricacy. Kleshas are at the root of a lot of difficulty from the Buddhist perspective. It's an intention, an emotional or mental state that isn't just disturbing mind's natural tranquility, but it's also driving us to act. We're in this turbulent mental state and driven to act. Doesn't sound very good for us, does it? The actions we take, motivated by kleshas, which are out of alignment with mind's natural state, are called karma. These actions, intentional actions, motivated by kleshas, inevitably yield a result that is in line with its cause. In a very general way, you could say that actions that are harmful yield painful or negative results. Actions that are beneficial yield pleasant or positive results. Why am I talking about it as emotional reflexes in this rendering of the maxim? Because this maxim is talking about immediate experience. This text is brilliant in that it is encouraging us to take all of our experience, our inner turbulence, our outer disappointments, and everything in between, as food for our spiritual practice. And in this maxim, it's saying, start with your most robust emotional reflex, our strongest klesha. Maybe that's desire. Yes, desire, which a lot of people have a very hard time accepting as a negative thing, is here described as something to work with. Let me be clear. What it's saying is that this emotional reflex that makes the mind very turbulent due to a particular desire, be it for a person or a situation or a job or whatever it might be, that drives particular conduct that's harmful to us. That's the difficulty. So it's our clinging to the things we desire as ends in themselves, as the way that we're going to be happy, that keeps the mind turbulent and keeps us away from actual ways to be happy and free of suffering. Simply put, clinging to desires keeps us from fulfilling our highest desire. If we had to go through every single emotional state we ever had and work on every single one of them, that's going to take a very long time. That's not a program for confidence. What this maxim is saying is, we all know, oh, I'm an angry person, oh, I'm a desirous person, oh, I'm really jealous. Whatever it might be, that's what this maxim is saying to focus on. Start there. Why? It's very coarse. It's easy to identify. We probably already know it. And we probably have done different things, maybe anger management classes, if that's something that we have an issue with. It's something that's close to the surface. So we can start learning to identify it, even if we easily fall under its sway. Then what happens is, As we turn our awareness, our introspection on this most tricky of our emotional reflexes, we start to see how it sends out tendrils into so many other aspects of our emotional life. As we start to address those reflexes, those kleshas that are most common for us, we start to see how others just naturally start to become easier to handle in its wake. Recall this practice works on multiple levels. Initially, we're working on healing, which can be as simple as identifying this is an issue for me. This is something I want to do, and developing different techniques in meditation or otherwise to identify and start to heal from the damage that those kleshas have already caused and from the habit of repeating that emotional reflex again and again. From that place of healing, in time we can transform and ultimately transcend not only our most robust klesha, but all of them altogether.
You say we all know what our strongest klesha is, but I'm wondering if everybody really knows that. It does take some insight, and we might be the most highly defended against knowing what some of our trickiest areas are. So, how do you guide people in identifying that most robust emotional reflex?
Go with what you know. Let's say that you think of yourself as an angry person. And that's actually a defense because what you really are is unbelievably jealous. Just go with what you know. If you think of yourself as angry, work with that. It will unveil deeper issues as you go along. Another possibility is there's a wonderful klesha that can be helpful for all of us to work with. It's the klesha that's literally described as delusion, not knowing, apathy. We all suffer from this in a very deep way. Honestly, if neither of those works for you, take a dart, put all the emotional reflexes on a target, and whichever one you hit will be just fine to begin with.
Well, I think that's great advice. Start somewhere is what you're saying. Don't keep yourself from doing anything just because you can't decide if, anger or desire is the best one to go with.
Yeah, if
Uh,
you're spending more than a minute on this, Dualistic Mind is doing its best to keep you from doing this work.
yeah. It also seems like, sometimes we can pay attention to what other people are telling us, and that might provide some guidance as well.
Yeah, that's another way that we know. Recall, however, Maxim 20, consistently be your own best judge. What other people tell us is certainly information that we put into the equation, but ultimately, we're the ones who know our mind. We might know that we're avoiding it because people have been telling us forever that we're to this or to that. But somewhere there's a voice that says it's this. And whether we get to that from day one or something happens to drop the scales from our eyes in the process, we'll get there.
I appreciated that description of the connection between kleshas and karma. So, if we know that we are in the throes of our emotional responses, if we're in the throes of kleshas, what do we do about action? Do we just not act when we're in that moment? Do we do something with what's going on internally instead? When somebody finds themselves in that moment, what should they do?
Again, there isn't a pat answer to this. It's something that we work with as part of working with our most robust klesha. For example, one of the things we can do is simply to pause. Of course, this only works in conditions where you have the time to just pause a little bit. And in that pause, we are not acting. Also, if your most robust klesha is extremely harmful to others, don't do it. Just like someone who has a problem with drugs or alcohol and is in recovery refrains from actions that are harmful to them. If our klesha is one that involves stealing or harming somebody or is actively harmful to others as well as ourselves, then in that case, of course, not doing anything is best. Another possibility, especially as we continue working with the maxims, is that we might look to one of the other maxims as what we can do there. We looked earlier at Maxim 14. Perceiving confused appearances as enlightened experience is the stronghold of emptiness. This is an incredibly advanced practice. If we're angry, the very essence of anger, if we could get to its pure essence, it is the wisdom of mirror-like clarity. So if you're working with anger and it's coming up for you, you might say, oh, this is mirror-like clarity. What is happening in this situation that I need to see clearly and that is getting mixed up and coming out as anger? If desire is what's happening for us, the essence of desire is described as intricately discerning wisdom. What about the desire I feel is actually trying to point out something that I can appreciate without undertaking actions that's harmful for me, and so forth. This is a really broad, very advanced practice, but gives us a clue for the incredible range of practices in Buddhism for working with our kleshas. Also, in our formal practice of meditation, we have a laboratory where we can revisit any difficulties that have come up and just sit with them, allow them to dissipate. This will make it easier to work with very strong emotions in our life. If we're not doing anything at all except reading the maxims, it's not going to make a lot of change. But if we are incorporating it into our daily life and also using the support of formal practice, when we encounter situations, we'll be more ready to work with them.
That's just beautiful, the idea that these kleshas can give us some kind of glimmer of clear view. I also noticed you saying that we have these habits of repeating this emotional reflex over and over, that these are the ones that are robust, the ones that come up for us again and again and again. And so I think one of the things I always keep in mind is if there's a habit I have that the same thing comes up again and again and again, I'm going to need to practice doing a different thing with it again and again and again in order to shift that. And so I really appreciate that guidance you have in terms of what we do about it. Maybe take a pause, maybe look at the essence of it. Whatever it is, just refrain from that harmful action if it might affect other people. So I really appreciate the practicality of some of these things in terms of thinking about what's a different thing that I might repeat so that I can have a different habit.
There's any number of different techniques you can use, but it would take the rest of the year to describe all of them. Basically, anything that you do that is different than that habit is going to undercut that habit. It's going to start laying new pathways to your response repertoire. So instead of being reactive out of habit, you can be responsive to the conditions you're in.
This has been Yeshe and Tanya on day 27 of PRAJNA SPARKS Special Series, 59 Days of Healing. Tune in daily for more maxims from the Tibetan Lojong text, 7 Points for Healing Dualistic Mind. Check the episode notes for more resources and email us at sparks@prajnafire.com with any questions. May all beings benefit.